All right. Good morning, everybody. It is what's the date? Today is Tuesday, June the 27th, 2023. And I hope that you're waking up to some delicious coffee. And maybe if you were lucky, somebody brought you breakfast in bed and you're not out in the workforce getting ready to make a living. Now then, I want to talk about Kouri RIchins for a little while before um, I go to work today. So we know now that she has been arrested. She's accused of the murder of her husband, Eric RIchins. Eric RIchins was a very successful business owner and, for all intent purposes, a millionaire. So they're the motive, what they believe is the reason that Kouri RIchins did what she did was money. While he was making money, she was spending money. And she does seem to be a little bit a little bit triggered by the idea that she would need Eric RIchins or that she would need him for his cash, even though she basically wiped out his cash reserves. She got home equity loans, blew through them, blew through savings accounts. This was a marriage in massive, sincere decline. We also know that there have been suggestions that Eric had an affair, and I have spoken anecdotally about the ravages of infidelity on a couple's financial situation. So it's a little hard to know if Corey was just plagued with delusions of grandeur, maybe some moments of mania, and so she got into these really risky, overinflated business deals that she just could not hold up, whether it was lacking in experience, um, or she was foolish, or what if she had a drug problem? Now, I haven't heard anybody talk about this, but there are two things that stand out to me that say, maybe this wouldn't be too far, too too big of a speculative um, path to travel. One moment. So I am to the point now today that I'm wondering, number one, all of this big money she's throwing around. Of course, there are paper trails for business considerations like purchasing a home, investing thousands and tens of thousands of dollars to upgrade it, and then turning around and selling it. There's business records that show your purchases, all of the paint that you purchased or plaster or whatever. Um, so those numbers can be followed, but what can't be followed is blowing through a $250,000 bank account that's cash with some confusion on the accounting. So people that are that bad at business that go into debt business-wise by millions of dollars, they're by all these hard money loans that she's getting. The business people I know, hard money scares people. Like it's good that you can access it for a short period of time. It can be like a bridge loan. It can be like a bridge loan that you're simply waiting on someone else to fund a project and you need some operating cost or whatever. So they have their uses, but that's not what this young woman was doing. She was using these hard money lenders like you would a bank. But I suspect the banks were not willing to loan her any money. And she began accessing the hard money lenders who were probably saying, hey, these loans are going to be backed by Eric Richins, and he's got a stellar reputation. His company is, you know, his reputation comes from this incredible background for his own business as well as the family. So, yeah, this if Kouri can't carry the loan on her own responsibility, then we can probably look to the Richins family to back that up, right? So so that's the first thing. It was an incredible amount of money. How do you do that without your husband knowing that you're doing it? And then ultimately, is that the reason that he was killed, or was there something else happening? Now, she claims that he had an affair. And um, she claims that he had, sorry, I lost my place, what I wrote. Um, so they, uh, Kouri RIchins claimed that Eric had an affair and that somehow that led to her leaving the home and having these bad decisions. But the reality is, if you go back and you track the money problems, the money issues were building before the affair happened. And so often an affair is considered the exit, the divorce, that that someone has stayed within a difficult or unfulfilling marriage for a long period of time, and that, oh, because they're just sort of surviving day by day, they're not really emotionally invested anymore, then they may meet someone and more easily fall in love. It feels more natural to them. They've already made the decision that the marriage is not working or functional, and so the affair serves as a door to exit. The Most people find out about an infidelity and they say, you know, get out, it's over. And so if you're the person wanting out, then you're like, oh, thank God, let me get out. She kicked me out. I don't have to feel like the heel that ended this. And so it's not how it always plays out, but that's a fairly common story that you will hear. So, this idea that perhaps Kouri herself was the one that was having a drug problem. Now, she told the investigators that Eric used to take hydrocodone. Um, I think she said hydrocodone, but if I'm saying that wrong, if she said pain pills, then maybe I just naturally kind of went there. But anyway, she did tell the investigators that he had a drug problem in high school, but she didn't know about one now. So she's setting the stage, right? She's setting the stage that the opiates are in his bloodstream and it doesn't have to be poisoning. He could have willingly taken it on his own because, after all, he had a taste for it when he was in high school, right? So the one of the things that makes me think that perhaps there was a drug problem for Kouri is that, and stay with me because I know there's an alternate explanation, okay? But she actually ended up purchasing additional uh, fentanyl even after Eric was dead, right? A month, several weeks after he died, she purchased more um, pills. And so the question was, well, so on March the 4th, 2022, he dies, correct? But then she ends up with more pills a few weeks later. So what were the pills for? So well, actually, I think it was like a week after he died. And so you have to ask yourself, well, what are the additional pills for? Because he's already dead. Now, some people, based on, I think, in part, his sister, Eric's sister, victim impact statement that was read during the preliminary hearing, um, or I'm sorry, during the bail hearing, she says that life insurance policies had been taken out on the children. And that just makes your blood run cold, right? And so one would speculate that perhaps that she didn't collect on the life insurance, thank goodness. She did not collect on the life insurance from Eric because he had foresight and fixed it so that everything was put in the name, saved for the children, and made the sister the executor. So it was saved, right, from her little clutches. And so then one would wonder, well, she took out this life insurance on the children. Were they now going to fall prey and pass away, giving her an opportunity to collect cash from them? Okay. So I gave that some thought, and I thought, that is a very uncomfortable thought. And she knew, she was aware that she was under investigation. So it's hard for me to believe. Now, maybe not 5 days, a week after he dies, but at some point she did become aware that they were looking at her. And I think in many ways, Lori Vallow, like what happened with Charles first, I don't think she thought they were looking at her. And I'm not sure that they were looking at her. I don't think they began to actually consider Lori Vallow as a murderer until they found JJ and Tylee, which was a year later, right? So I think that somehow Lori felt like she was invincible, that people would look at her and go, oh no, she'd never do anything like that. Are we seeing the same kind of thing with Kouri RIchins? Does she also have that invincibility, or was there something else that was going on? I wonder, as I watch her appearance on that morning television show, her face, there was no change in affect. Her eyes seem strange. And so her background was a little bit different than Eric. Eric was a child of privilege. His family were very comfortable financially, and she was not. Her background was much different than that. So let me show you, I want to watch her appearance. I think I have to remove this. Okay. Okay. So her, this is the little short hearing that they had like 4 days ago. All right. And I want to watch her demeanor as she comes into the courtroom, and then I want to talk a little bit about what we're seeing here. Everybody commented, wow, she's crying. But I think she looks sick. If you watch her, she keeps taking deep breaths. She doesn't quite stand up. Her legs are kind of bent. She looks like to me, she's like, oh my gosh, I need to sit down.
All right. Is Lazaro ready to call the Richins back?
We are, Your Honor.
I think she's ill.
Let me just call the case.
That's fine.
Yes.
This is 231-500-139. State of Utah versus Kouri RIchins. Ms. Costello, Mr. Hill, and Ms. Olson on behalf of the state. Ms. Lazaro, Mr. Hamidi on behalf of Ms. RIchins. Good morning,
Looks like
Ms.
she's
RIchins.
gonna
Afternoon. Pardon me. What's contemplated today?
And look around her
Your
nose.
Honor, I met with
I think she's
the
vomiting.
state prior
Look how
to this
dark
hearing today to
the circles
discuss
are under her
the
eyes.
discovery, essentially.
I
There
think
is
that
a
Kouri
lot
is in
in
withdrawal.
this case, and it's ongoing. I believe we've come up with a plan as far as an
Let her
indexing
put her head down.
system and
Either
just
that or she's
essentially
pregnant.
basic document production guidelines we're going to follow to make sure
He's looking at her.
we
It's like,
all know what
are you
everybody
gonna
has and what's
upchuck on
out
me?
there and an easy reference to it.
Okay.
So I think from that standpoint, they're going to just essentially reproduce discovery in that manner.
Is it all happening through box, Ms. Cassell?
Yeah, yes, Your Honor, happening through box, but we're going to pull it back, bait stamp it, and then produce it in a
So-
much more organized way. We were
Is that
valuing
possible
production rather than
that
organization.
we're
and
kind
now
of
we're
seeing
going to
somebody that
organize
is
it in a more
so in
efficient and
opiate
better way.
withdrawal?
Do we
Of
have an
course,
agreement
there
as
is
to a
an
convention
acute-
for naming electronic files
there's
such
an
as
acute
recordings and videos?
And it's
That's
the
another thing
withdrawal
we're going to be
symptoms
working
start
on as
out
well.
mild,
But we
anywhere
can talk about
between
that as well, and
4
production
and
of those,
6
because
hours
those may not be
after
able
their
to be
last
produced through
dose,
box. They will
depending
probably
on
have
what
to
they're
be
taking, how
produced through,
fast acting it is.
physical
drives.
Okay.
I
They
don't
will
foresee a
begin to
problem
have
at this point.
withdrawal symptoms. They
with
go through
us
different
working with the
types
state
of
and
symptoms
figuring those
that
issues out.
emerge at different
I think
steps
timing
in
wise.
the
How fast
biological
can
or
they should?
physiological
Well,
process
and we
of
discussed that as
withdrawal.
well. And I think in
And
fairness,
they peak
just given the
very, very
amount of
uncomfortable
information, what we'd like to
symptoms
do
will
is set a
peak
status
around
in about 60 days.
96
And I
hours
understand
per
I understand your
day,
concerns, and
depending
trust
on
me,
how
I
you're counting your
share
days.
them because my client's in
And
custody.
then very
But
slowly,
given how
they
much there
begin to get
is,
a little bit better.
and all
So
the phone
worst,
downloads, I have to get
like when
those
you're
to
at
my
your most
phone person.
uncomfortable, your
I
most
just,
sick
I don't
and
foresee
ill, is
being
is
able to
right
come
at
back and have anything
3
meaningful
3.5 to 4
before then,
days,
because I'm going to have
Can you be
depending
to.
on
prepared to set a
whether you're
preliminary hearing in
using
60
something
days?
like hydrocodone.
I hope
where
so. I think
it's
that's going to
relatively
be
fast
dependent
onset, short
on,
half-life,
I guess, the
or it could be
ongoing
something
nature
longer
of where
if
the
it's
state's at in
if
their
you're taking
investigation.
a
I
time
guess
release,
so. I can't answer that. Yes, if
like,
everything's produced in
like,
60 days, I think we can set
Oxycontin, which is a
a
much
hearing.
longer
If
process, so you
there's
may not
outstanding
peak
things,
in
I
your
guess the
withdrawal
answer is I don't know
symptoms
at this
until
I mean, it seems that the state's
3,
investigation into related
probably the worst would be probably
potential crimes is
third
ongoing.
week, second
Right.
week,
What I'm trying
would
to nail
probably
down
at the
is
very worst.
within 60 days.
These
can
are very
you
the long-acting drugs. The
be
reason
prepared to
they
understand
began
the
giving
universe
these
of evidence
long-acting
supporting the
drugs
current charges and
is
the
because
amended
they
information?
thought
the current
that it
charges, I
would
believe so,
reduce
yes.
So we
the
can set a preliminary
possibility
hearing
of
on those, right?
addiction.
Well, I
Because
guess the
they
question is if
believed
we
for a
amend
short
the
period of
information
time,
and
they
adding more
believed that
charges
what was
and
causing
Well,
the
say-
addiction
I
to
think
opiates is
that's
that you get
speculative
a
now,
whole
and I
lot in
think
your
that
system
would be something that we
very
would have to
quickly,
address.
and then it would go
We
away
can't address
quickly, and then
when-
you get a
if
whole
and when it
lot.
happens.
You take the next pill, and then you get a lot, and then it would go away. So then they said, well, let's use it.
All right.
Let's use this extended form.
You're asking for 60 days. I'll
and
give
then
you
they
60
don't get
days.
these
I
peaks
feel
and
some
valleys. They
compulsion
just
to
get like
keep
this
it moving as fast
solid,
as possible, given that
even
Mr.
level
Richins is
of
in
drug in the
custody.
system.
And just because we
And
have
people just
the
figured
freedom
out a way to
doesn't
work
mean
around it by
trial occurs
crushing
immediately
the pill.
thereafter, I imagine.
So,
investigations
Right.
so
will
now they
continue, trial
know
preparation will
actually the long acting
Okay.
are much more likely
continue. Any
to
objection,
lead
Ms. Cassell?
to
No, Your Honor. No
addiction because the withdrawal from them are so much
We
worse.
thinking the end of August?
So
I think
fentanyl
middle
is
to end of
a
August would
drug
be-
that is given in the hospital for people that have been like
Do you want a special set or do you want to do it on a
great deal of
Friday?
pain, and they need relief very
Just a-
quickly. It
it's just
works
a
very, very
status, unless
fast.
there's some issues, which I
and
think
it's
if we
very
run into issues,
powerful.
we can
It's heavily
notice that prior
controlled.
to that
If
anyway, so
if
that
they get
we can
an
hopefully
order
have
of
them
fentanyl
resolved
from
by
the
that date.
hospital pharmacy,
I
the
think just
pharmacist
doing
is
a
escorted
Friday is
as they take that
It's fine
dose
with
to
me.
the
We can
emergency
do the
room
afternoon
or the operating
I'm
room.
sorry.
Oh, you're going to say the
Um,
18th? That was what
and
I'm worried about.
they
and
observe
I
it
am-
as it's
I could do
being
that
administered.
virtually,
They
which would
don't
be
take
fine if
any
you're okay
chance
with
at
that,
all
just
that
because we
somebody
would
else
have
is
other
going to get their
people here.
hands on it.
Would you
So
prefer to just do the afternoon of September 1
That would-
So-
I would
in person?
do that.
That's fine.
Fentanyl wouldn't
Okay.
really be the
We'll set a
optimal
scheduled
drug for
conference
a drug addict.
for
Number
September
one, it's
1
so
at 1:30
expensive.
p.m. in person.
You run the risk of
Anything
getting
else that I can-
counterfeit that
I
can
don't
kill
have anything
you.
right
No,
now,
you're not.
thank you.
And
Ms. Richins,
you
I'll
don't
see you
get
back
that
on
really
September 1 at
long
1:30 p.m. in person. If
period
not soon,
of
I
effect.
wish you the best of luck.
But it would be a
All right,
really
thank you,
great drug if you
You said
wanted
one.
to murder someone.
September 1 at 1:30.
Yeah,
Yeah, my apologies.
And it would be a
Lots of
great
lists.
drug
Okay, thank you.
if you yourself were a drug addict and you were trying to avoid withdrawal. So is that why we see her crying and looking so ill? Because her first appearance in court was not anything as dramatic as this one was. And she got some pretty bad news that first go around in court. So I wonder if we're not looking at an addiction problem. The withdrawal, so obviously, opiates do have a antidepressant quality. It's actually kind of the ultimate antidepressant because it gives you a period of euphoria. It gives you a false sense of well-being, which is one of the reasons why so many people get addicted to it, because they think, wow, I finally feel good. I finally feel normal. And they don't realize that they're really setting themselves up for a terrible fall. So I think that there are some suggestions that maybe Kouri was the one that had this pill problem or opiate problem. Maybe that's why she got herself into some of these difficult loans, buying this multi-million-dollar, what was basically just a problem. I mean, there was a reason the house got abandoned in the middle of the desert, because it was a money pit. It was too costly. And if you're not a person that has not just a couple of $1 million, but an inflow of that level of cash, you couldn't possibly take a house like that and flip it. The cost alone would kill you. And if you see the inside of the house, it would have had a lot of problems. So I just wonder if she didn't have some problems. And if maybe she herself was taking these pills. Most of us don't know a drug dealer. And can I be honest? I wouldn't have a clue where to even start to find someone to buy opiates. Or, well, I wouldn't even know how to buy marijuana, but I would think marijuana would probably be easier to find. But who's going to take the chance to say, oh, yeah, just go get in touch with my drug dealer and they'll hook you up with some fentanyl? Unless you run in those circles and people know you and they know, oh yeah, she totally uses, that she's not undercover with the cops. I can't imagine that it would be easy to find. I could be wrong. Maybe y'all may be laughing at me right now. Maybe I'm showing my innocence, but I really think that she obviously knew someone and felt comfortable with them to say, I need propanol or I need fentanyl, the stuff that Michael Jackson used. She felt comfortable enough to ask the right person who was able to then get it for her. That's pretty significant. How do you just know if you're a business owner, you're married to this wealthy business owner, life's good, there's plenty of money. How do you even trust someone to go and say, hey, man, buy me some fentanyl? There's something else here. There's a different story beneath the surface. And I believe that it is this young woman had addiction problems, and that Eric had enough, and he was on his way out of the marriage, And she panicked, knowing, wow, I have dug myself in such a deep financial hole. Who's going to take care of me? I'm not a very good businesswoman, even though I'm playing the part with his money. All my ventures have been failures. None of them are profitable. Yeah, all these life insurance policies and whatnot, it just looks like desperation. And one thing that we know about addicts, they will do foolish, foolish things with the eye on, I need to get my drugs. I need to get my connection. They walk away from husbands, they walk away from wives, parents. They will abandon their children at the drop of a hat. Make no mistake about it. They will steal their old mom's last dime. These are the people that will look at an 85-year-old woman, steal her credit card, and then run it up and never have not an ounce of compassion for what they're doing to her. They only love their drug. They are married to their high. One time, many years ago, I was working at a rehabilitation hospital. People that had been in car accidents and they needed to learn how to walk again, or amputations, that kind of thing. I was working at a rehabilitation hospital, and we had a terrible, terrible case of an older woman who, she would come in and she would have, like, her hand would be broken, like a new break, or she'd have bruises all over her body. And to make a long story short, it finally, there was a long investigation, it was a big deal. And finally, after all of this, it came out that her son had a pain pill addiction, and he was beating her and forcing her to give him her pain medication. So if she refused him, he would beat her up. And she really, for her condition that she had, she was in an immense amount of pain, and she really needed those pills. So she was giving the pills up, and then she couldn't hardly walk to get into the building. And we were just like, why is she in so much pain? Because her pain should be well treated with her medication. So it was an awful, awful, awful story. And she protected him. She didn't want, to admit that he was doing this to her. But, he's a 45-year-old man, and he's beating up a geriatric woman because all he could think of was, I need those pills. So is this evidence what she did to Eric, and maybe what she was planning on doing with children? Was this an addict in action, would be my question. And that she knew how much fentanyl would be needed to kill him. It's curious, it's a question for sure. And I think all the tears that you're seeing in the courtroom during that period of, withdrawal is very difficult. The acute period is awful. The vomiting, the nausea, the diarrhea, emotional lability, just angry, sad, crying, not any happiness, but a lot of negative emotion. Being very, very cold, and then sweating and hot. Not being able to sit still, moving around a lot, moving your legs. That's why they call it kick the habit, because they kick their legs a lot. So I think the unusual amount of money that even the accountant was sort of suggesting, I'm not sure where this money went, but I know where that money went. That would be a red flag. She had a horrible relationship with her in-laws. Her mother-in-law showed up on the wedding day with a prenup, said, sign this. That is very strange, people. I've not really ever heard of that, even with wealthy families. because you're welcoming somebody into your family. You're getting like a new child, right? And so it's a period of celebration and happiness. And I can only think of one time where it wasn't a happy day that this person was getting married. And part of the problem was everybody suspected drug use. So is that why the mother, Eric's mother, showed up with a prenup? Were they all aware that maybe Kouri had a history of maybe being involved with drugs, or at least running with a group that would be? It is a possibility, I think. So her demeanor in court, looking like she's sick, protracted withdrawal. The hallmark of protracted withdrawal is devastating depression. It is very difficult to get off of opiates. They can get through the withdrawal phase, the acute withdrawal, and then they think, okay, well, I'm going to be okay once I get off of it. I just got to be super tough this week, or if it's a short acting opiate, just got to be tough, and then I'll be home free. And they don't anticipate 6 months to a year of devastating depression, feeling withdrawn, social isolation. This social isolation is on their part. They don't have the ability to be out talking with people. They want to be left alone. They want to be completely isolated and by themselves. And so it's a very, very hard thing to do, to get clean off of opiates and stay clean even for just 1 year. So that may be what we're seeing. She may have been sick that morning. She may be in withdrawal, moving from acute withdrawals into protracted withdrawal. It might explain some of the bizarre money stuff. It might explain her very strange presentation, the fact she didn't take her jacket off. Remember what I said, withdrawals, they get cold a lot. So it would at least explain the decision making, how one could be so foolish to take out that many life insurance policies and think you're just going to collect it and no one's going to ask you any questions. It was a foolish yeah. Something else is going on with Kouri RIchins. It wasn't just a love of money. Something else interfered with her logic. Something interfered with her ability to judge how this whole thing was going to turn out. All right. Y'all have a great day.